Hi everybody, this is Victoria. Welcome back to another new episode of Discovering Art Together. And today we are going to learn and talk about silhouette and value studies for composition and how that could actually help with our composition. So value studies are one of the very important parts in creating good composition, but also keeping it very simple at the very beginning. So I'm going to talk about and we're going to explore a bit together on 3 brand new paintings of Vermeer, Johannes Vermeer, and then also another artist, a Scandinavian artist back in the 19th century called Vilhelm Hammershoi. I hope I pronounced his name correctly though, but he is a fantastic Danish artist and I love his artwork so much. I have to thank one of my very good friends for actually introducing me this Danish artist to me, and his work is just beautiful. It's very low-key. The lighting and also the color harmony and the color palette that he uses is very muted. So it's very different from what I'm actually used to though, but it's really, really pretty, his beautiful artworks. So we're going to see all these 3 paintings as a silhouette and also as a value study so that we can understand how these 2 artists composed their composition and created their beautiful and amazing artworks. So if you guys are ready, let's get started. So how I came upon this subject over here today about silhouettes and value studies and how it could make our composition a lot better. It's from an art article on muddy colors, and if you do not know what muddy colors is a open resource area where you can actually learn a lot of great tips and advice and just generally knowledge about art, painting and drawing from many amazing artists on the platform and website. So feel free to read awesome articles and just learn and explore that website. There's plenty of awesome, really good stuff on there. So on Muddy Colors, they had a article by David Palumbo, I think I pronounced his name right, and he had an article called Using Shape and Value for Better Composition. And basically he had this really nice quote from J.C. Leyendecker, and he mentioned that a good cover has a distinct silhouette. So that's where the silhouette name comes in with today's episode, is that we want to make sure that we have a nice good impact, so at every first glance it would attract our attention just because how well the values and colors, but mainly values and the composition are built. And value studies is a great way to simplify a lot of the shapes and also the tones into very basic categories. For example, we're going to take a look at these 3 paintings over here today. 2 are by Vilhelm Hammershoi and then 1 is by Johannes Vermeer, and we're going to see what we can actually use and apply to learn how these masters created their composition if we were to look at them in value tones and value studies. The 3 paintings that we're going to look at today first is Interior with a Young Woman Seen from the Back by Vilhelm Hammershoi, and the other one is also by Hammershoi, which is called Interior with Ida in a White Chair. The 3rd painting we're going to look at is Johannes Vermeer's The Geographer. And those 3 paintings I picked out specifically because they had a better balance of value tones and light and darks, but we are going to see them in grayscale, so black and white, to make it easier for us to mainly see the silhouettes and how they composed and placed the shapes so that it works out a really interesting composition. So let's take a look at our very first painting. So the first painting we're going to look at is Hammershoi's painting of the interior design with a young woman seen from the back. Okay, and this design is actually really interesting. So we see it in color first, so we have a nice comparison between the two. So we have the color one, and then we also have the black and white one. So as you can see, once we turn to black and white, it's a lot easier to simplify and categorize the value tones. So for those who don't know what value tones are basically our kind of like our gray tones from light to dark. It's our lighting basically, or it's like our light and values. So it's like our dark shadows, which is the darkest you could get is probably black, and the lightest what you could get is white, and then we have all the other gray tones in between. So if we were to look at this painting over here of interior with a young woman seen from the back by Hammershoi, this one is really interesting because he did a great job at making the light majority of it pretty much at the center, and it's interesting too because it's not just a boring straight line either. There is a lot of bends and different directions and curves for it, but it does have a flow to it, so the flow is not broken. And we definitely would categorize the figure and everything at the bottom of the table in shadow, and then everything at the top with a bit part of the frame. I would probably just categorize the whole frame into the dark shadows, and then that's basically how this piece is composed. And definitely along with the values, he also used a lot of the golden ratio in this composition too. So this lady is standing in the or in alignment with the vertical golden ratio on the right, and then the pot or that vase that's on the table there, that is on the horizontal bottom side of the golden ratio. So it's a really nice balance. We don't seem to see any area that seems to be too empty. It's not too zoomed in or anything when we take a view of this whole composition. It's pretty well balanced, and the lighting is very even. So we got our most important character in the shadows, and then we can actually see a silhouette of her around this lighting, brighter lighting, and then that does a great balance and focus of our main subject. And I would say we have like two subjects because the pot and the vase would be considered our secondary subject. Okay, so that's the first painting. The next painting we're going to look at is interior with Ida in a white chair. And this painting is actually really interesting because we have an example of this in color first. So we have like a comparison between the two. So this is what it looks like in color. And we're going to go ahead and turn it into black and white. Now, when you're doing this particular exercise, I would recommend to turn up the contrast. So what I did is I blew up the contrast. I made it as high of a number as possible. I turned it up, and that way we can see the really dark parts and the really bright parts, because what this does is that it categorizes the two, the lighter values and the darker values into like less than probably 3 or 4 categories, and then the less categories the better, because you'll see how helpful it is and how hard it is to actually decide which gray tone would you categorize as light or dark. And then basically the more limited palette of value tones you have, the harder it is to categorize and decide whether it would go on the bright side or the dark side. So for this painting, what I noticed that it's really interesting because it's pretty obvious that the white chair is one of the main subjects over here, other than the character though. But with Hammershoi's paintings and just generally his style is that his interior design of Scandinavian interior designs is very important in many of his paintings. So we kind of have like almost 2 main subjects, I would say though, but definitely I think the person would still be the main character of this piece or this show over here. And if we were to divide this, as you can see, the table at the bottom is all in black, so we can actually categorize all of that and kind of surround the whole area, and then all we leave that's completely white is probably the really bright part on the interior design, and also the window area through the door, and also the white chair. And then that's pretty much the only thing that really sticks out. And we do see a bit of golden ratio that's going on over here, where the seat is placed, and then also where the concentration of the lighting, because that placement of the window and the brightest area of this painting is actually placed on the vertical golden ratio. So that's really well composed, but just generally the balance is very well done. We don't have too much of the super bright areas. It was a good balance of neutral gray tones, and also not too many of the super dark areas. Okay, and last but not least, the last painting we're going to look at is Johannes Vermeer's The Geographer. And with this painting, let's take a look at it in color first, and then we'll also see it in black and white. So for this painting over here, the interesting thing about this one is we do have a lot more of the darker tones. So what Vermeer did with this one is that he really had a really strong impact and stronger contrast with the lighting from the window, which is perfect because that's where our main character is. And we have this kind of interesting shoe looking shape that's coming down here, and it's enough of a interesting shape that it does attract our attention to more of the left side than anything else on the right side. So we kind of start from the left, and then we kind of go into the painting, and then we kind of see a nice balance, because if we were to surround this whole painting, for example, all in black and really dark areas, then it would make it too empty on the right side, and it would be just too heavy on the left, because we have all this lighting on the left side and it would just be out of balance. So having a good balance, not too much bright light on the right side, is a very good and balanced composition. And then the other interesting thing is that the foreground is very much all in shadow, so he's lighting up the majority of the middle ground, and then the background is also half in shadow, half in light, as we kind of explore and see that there is a globe at the top, and then there's also a wardrobe in the back, a painting or a map, and some furniture on the right side. Okay, and that's pretty much it for today. So I hope you guys learned a few new things about these studies and how we could actually use lighting to simplify the composition, and using shapes, silhouettes, and value tones to kind of get a overall idea of how we want to compose our composition. And here's a little exercise for you guys. So feel free to actually pick some of your favorite paintings or pictures. So it doesn't have to be a old master paintings. If you're not too interested in that, you can also choose a photography or a picture that you like, turn to black and white, make sure you bump that contrast all the way up so it simplifies and flattens as much of the picture as possible, and then that way you can kind of see how the shapes and the surroundings would harmoniously act together in this show. So you kind of think of it as a theater act, or kind of like a movie. So you have all these characters, you also have the scene. So basically, depending on like what kind of scene would attract a certain part of the movie. So with this, you can actually try out and actually sketch out a few thumbnails too. I would actually recommend that, and they don't have to be big. They just have to be like probably like 1 inch to 1.5 inch. It doesn't have to be too big of a thumbnail, and it's a very quick and easy sketch for about like 5 minutes, or probably even less if you're very good at categorizing the value tones for which ones are going to be dark ones, which are going to be light ones. And that way it's actually really good because it helps you generate a lot of ideas and actually seeing different patterns. I think the main thing that I learned from doing a lot of value studies and just value practices is mostly just getting to be able to categorize the tones very quickly, like and not just very quickly though, but actually understanding how and why this pattern would look better than another. So pattern composition comes along together. They're kind of like two peas in a pod almost, and they kind of work together so that we can actually create something that's interesting to the eye, and we can try out many different things to see what would work best and what would actually capture our interest. So if you guys are having trouble with what you want to do with your composition and just kind of see it in a simplified way, doing value studies is a great way to start. There's plenty of more other stuff about composition that you'll have to learn along the way, and just try to explore and experiment, because I notice a lot in students where they always just they read a lot and then they kind of like learn a lot though, but they don't actually apply it to any of the artworks or projects and pieces that they do. So you really need to put in that practice in order to kind of understand a lot better and actually working with it. So you can't just see it on the outside, you actually have to know the function and what it feels like to be in it and actually creating and working with it. Okay, but thanks again everybody for watching this brand new episode about silhouettes and values and how you can actually use it in your compositions. And feel free to comment below if you guys have any questions, or if you guys have any of your thoughts and ideas about value studies and how you would actually approach value studies and learning it from the old masters, or by just learning it on your own and just checking out some of your favorite pictures, favorite paintings, and see if you can actually simplify this in your own way. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. And feel free to check out more of my other videos about composition, and then there's also more videos about color psychology from last week, and there's going to be so much more coming out. I am super excited to share more with you guys, and I'm also kind of learning and discovering new things and see what can help prove my creativity, composition, and just generally learning and exploring more. Okay, and I shall see you guys again next week with another brand new episode, and we shall see what we'll be talking about next week. What should we talk about? If you guys have any ideas, feel free to comment below. I'll be more than happy to learn and also discover some other subjects that we could probably talk about together. Okay, awesome. Take care everybody. Have a wonderful week, have a wonderful weekend, and till next time.